Welcome back to another Wednesday on the Pagan Perspective. Thank you so much for being here. I am your Wednesday host, Yeka, and this week we are talking about celibacy. So the question is quite involved. There's quite a bit to it, and it's very difficult. It's clear to me that there's so much more than was able to be communicated in just a few paragraphs. So I'm not going to try to touch on every one of the topics which was alluded to or brought up in the full comment, which is in the description below if you want to go ahead and read that. Simply because I think that there wasn't enough to be able to do so in a respectful way. I think that whatever's going on in this person's life is there's so much more to it than could be communicated in such a short piece, and I would not want to step upon them in any way and make any sort of assumptions around that. But there is the piece, which is what it begins with, which is taking a vow of celibacy a pagan thing? In other words, can it be done in a pagan way? So I do think I can speak to that a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. The first thing is that paganism is to different people and has been over the past millennia very different things. What being pagan is to me is different than it is to you, all of that. But also, what was it to the Romans? What was it to the Greeks? What was it to my ancestors hanging out in the British Isles, right? It's been so many different things. So I don't have the historical knowledge to really say, oh, well, there was this group that believed this and this and practiced celibacy. Off the top of my head, the first thing that popped into mind was the Vestal Virgins, and that seems like maybe there's some connection there. Often things that practiced in Catholicism had pagan roots, so perhaps there's some direction to pursue there. But I would imagine that there are probably quite a few examples, simply because paganism has existed for so long, over such huge spans of cultures. In terms of in modern paganism, it's not a practice or theme that I've really come across before. If anything, I've actually come across quite the opposite, an encouragement of sexuality and sex positivity and empowerment in that way. But that isn't to say that there aren't modern practices, modern traditions in which that is a thing. It's just not something that I have come across. It's not something that I see getting a lot of screen time. But there is something in modern paganism that the vast majority of modern paganism focuses on. And again, of course, there are exceptions to this, but it's a pretty common theme. And that is the theme of self-empowerment and really empowering the individual to do what works for them, what feels right for them. And so from that context, if one feels very drawn to celibacy or any other particular practice, then that's going to be something that feels right, that feels empowering, then pursuing that for that individual is a very pagan thing if you consider that self-empowerment to be part of your pagan practice. So it's obviously not something that I personally practice, but it fits in with my idea of paganism. So that's my bit this week. We have some more very interesting range of topics coming up, and I look forward to sharing those with you and would love to hear your comments in the comments section. So until next week, take care.